Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to watch my Capstone conference presentation. Apologies that I couldn't be there for the live conference, but like I said, really appreciate you all joining me here today. So, I'm going to go through my work integrated learning project. So, just a little bit of context, I'm a high school teacher. I work at an all boys independent high school in the inner west of Sydney. The students at this school range from years 5 to 12, and in the past 3 to 5 years, there's been a real increased focus on academic achievement within the school. Further, there's been a lot of upgraded facilities over the past year. New classrooms have been built, things like breakout spaces and things like that have all come to the forefront of the school, and this will become a little bit more relevant as I go through what I intend to be completing for my project. So, in terms of my learning goals, my goal for this particular project is to expand on my understanding on the topic of the learning space and how this can be altered in the modern setting. My plan is to synthesize the relevant literature for the proposed topic, and I'm also going to develop a reflection based on the implications of this. So, my actual final artifact that I'm going to present is an annotated bibliography with a reflection on the implications of what it is that I have found based on my research. So, in terms of how this links to my master's studies, and what I think has been really important is my ability to explore different ideas through a new lens. And I think that we have really been challenged to constantly consider all of these ideas from a new lens. And so, I think that this particular project really epitomizes that. Particularly the subject of learning in the digital age, we explored the idea of flipped learning classrooms, and given the current state of education and virtual learning and the movement that we've really had to online learning, I was really challenged to reconsider my preconceived notions of a traditional classroom. So, in this subject specifically, I was encouraged to consider how the learning space could be transformed, and I really would like to take this opportunity to continue to explore this idea. Secondly, one of the other subjects that I completed evaluating learning it was one that I really enjoyed. And in this particular subject, I evaluated an inquiry based learning program that my school had been running for stage 4. And within this program, there was a definite manipulation of the traditional learning classroom. And what I've sort of thought about and what I'd like to explore is the crossover between these ideas. So, the way in which a traditional learning classroom was manipulated within our school in conjunction with new understandings of the learning space. So, things like flipped learning classrooms, virtual learning, and all of those sorts of things. Um, Furthermore, in the masters, we've really been challenged to explore literature and really have developed the research skills that I think will be important in getting me to consider some of the newer models that could be considered for the learning space. So, what I thought I would start with when I decided on what my project was going to be, um, I developed, I first spoke to colleagues and peers within my professional context, and they gave me feedback on what they think some of the important things to consider when it comes to the learning space were. So some of these key terms, and what I've done is put them into this word cloud to really sort of concisely present some of the key ideas, and obviously the classroom being the key focus and learning being the epitome of what we consider to be the learning space. And I think this is a really fantastic introduction for a topic that's ever evolving. It's got such a broad scope, but it also can have really significant implications for the education sector. So I've used these discussions with colleagues regarding their considerations, and I've then taken these discussions and really focused on them with my critical mentor to help me refine where I think would be best to focus on given the learning space. And I've sort of picked two really key areas, being student buy-in and furthermore student achievement based on this understanding. So what I thought I would do, also given the time constraints that we are under for this particular presentation, is I'd quickly summarize three of the key articles that I found that I think will be effective in helping me to achieve and go through this particular project. So the first one is an article that is a comparison of traditional lecture style learning, and it compares that with active learning and how satisfied students were within the learning process. And it really focuses on that spatial understanding of what the learning space and how it is physically constructed, and how this then lends itself to the type of learning that is conducted and the way that students reacted to and felt like their learning was being enhanced or not enhanced in this particular setting. The second article I have found particularly interesting, as it has used participants being a range of students and teachers, and these participants were asked to design their own classrooms and learning centers. And what has been really interesting in these findings is that the results were still what most people would consider to be quite traditional layouts. So very traditional rows or small groups, or quite a big large group of desks. And so I think it's been an important component to consider for me looking forward in terms of that real physical layout, and when teachers and when students have buy-in to the learning space, what the implications of this are. And the final article that I wanted to explore is, again, another comparative analysis of the impact of learning environments on student attitudes and learning outcomes. So whilst the first two articles were really focusing on student buy-in and how it enhanced their engagement with learning, what this one is more so focusing on is how can the learning space be manipulated in order to improve student attitude and learning outcomes. So I think that this is really important, as this is obviously a really integral part of the education sector, and definitely an integral part of my particular professional context. In terms of how I'm traveling so far with the project, so like I said before, I've done a lot of collaboration with my peers who have shared their experiences and understandings of the topic, and particularly my critical mentor, who is one of the coordinators at my school. We have really helped to refine the focus of my research. I have then used this in order to complete the research and to find all the relevant literature for my proposed topic, and I've gone through note-taking, analysis, evaluation of this research. What I am still left to do, and I'm really looking forward to doing, is experimenting with these different aspects of the topic to really determine if I can even narrow it down further, the specific avenue that I'm going to explore. And again, as part of this conference, and still with those in my particular school, I'm going to again share my findings with my peers to receive some really constructive feedback and see if there are any changes that I would like to make before really focusing and locking in the articles. So in terms of the feedback that I would like today, firstly, I want to really say thank you to everyone for engaging in this process. I'd love some feedback from particularly those who are in the education sector, whether they would consider any other aspects of the classroom space and the learning space that I could consider with my research. Secondly, whether the amount and the type of articles are sufficient. So I intend to use 6 to 8, but I could potentially look at using less but doing them in far more detail. And I really think that will depend on if I decide to really narrow down my focus or keep a few different elements surrounding the topic as my focus. And finally, whether I should maybe manipulate the reflection a little bit to use it as a pitch for the executive at my school, and provide myself with an opportunity to really build and experiment with a new classroom space. So, again, thank you all so much for engaging in this. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to watching everybody else's presentations as well. Thank you.